Alright, it's Mate Redacted. After all the leaks of Oblivion Remastered were actually proven true, the Bethesda leaking community gained just a bit more credibility. Today I wanted to look into some more leaks that we've seen about Elder Scrolls 6 to see if this new leak accuracy that we've had recently could also apply to TES6, the Elder Scrolls 6. There's been a ton of leaks, and if even half of them are true, then Bethesda's leakier than the Titanic. Today we're going to be ranking the Elder Scrolls 6 leaks from most likely to most insane. This ranking scale will be vibes based. Please leave your grievances down in the comments section below, since we have nothing official on the game yet apart from that 38-second video that we got 7 years ago. We can't really do a fact-based ranking system because we've almost got nothing to go on. This is our ranking scale. These leaks are in no particular order, so without further ado, let's begin. Starting off with an absolute banger, the first leak comes to us from a website called TES6. I don't know if I'm saying that right. A website that's so reputable that this is the first time I've ever heard of them. This leak alleges that dragons will return, there will be naval battles, villages and fortresses building, and that we'll be able to see content from the game or an official announcement, perhaps a re-announcement because they kinda already have announced it, as early as July this year. Looking in the comments on Reddit where this article is linked, most people seem to think that this is absolute bullshit, but I kinda disagree with them. While I don't think that this leak is 100% credible, it's not so obviously fake either. Honestly, it's kinda milquetoast. They're not really saying anything which is completely and utterly out there. They're kinda saying things that you could maybe just deduce. But let's have a bit of a deeper dive into this leak instead of just doing something surface level. First off, I can't really say if dragons will be in the game or not. It's not so obvious, because it's true that the Dragonborn in Skyrim didn't completely kill all the dragons, so the dragons are probably still kicking around about somewhere, but in the next game, who knows, I guess it's maybe going to be a creative choice by Bethesda, whether they are or aren't. Would it mean that the protagonists of the Elder Scrolls 6 would have to also be Dragonborn though? That might be a reason why maybe there's only 1 or 2 dragons in the game. There might be a couple of dragons, but I certainly don't think that they'll play as big a role as they did in Skyrim. No one really liked it when you were in a town just going about your business, trying to sell something to someone, and then a dragon flying within 2 miles caused all the NPCs to aggro, so you couldn't really do anything because they were all just standing there with their weapons out or fleeing. That was quite annoying, so hopefully that's not in TES6 at least. As far as naval battles, villages and fortress building, I'm not really sure. I guess the building could be a part of it, as it's just an extension of what we've seen in Fallout and Starfield, where you needed to kinda use a thing to build in your house rather than just buying the packs which gave you like a preset theme in your house. I'm gonna give this leak maybe a 3 or 4 out of 10. There's nothing here that sounds outrageous, but as I said, it's just kinda milquetoast. It's not so obviously true, but it's not so obviously false. It's just kinda in the middle there, somewhere floating around. Moving on to the second leak, and hopefully one which is a bit more interesting than the first one, which was basically like a piece of dry bread. So this one's basically a bit more out there. To start, there's a claim that the game is coming out in 2028, which is pretty much spot on with what I think. Hammerfell, I assume everyone thinks that now. The faction part is where things get a bit more interesting. So there's the Imperial Cult, Mages Guild, Dark Brotherhood, Fighters Guild, and the Temple of the Three. It's not so obvious which of these is the Thieves Guild. Perhaps the Thieves Guild didn't make the cut and is being replaced by something else, maybe a different name, but functionally the same. I would maybe guess that this could be the Temple of the Three. I'm not really sure what the Imperial Cult is either. That sounds a bit strange. Not really a cult guy. Don't really want to be in a cult, but you know, maybe I could be persuaded. Only being able to join 4 out of 5 factions does sound weird at first, and perhaps maybe you would think that they wouldn't do this because Bethesda wants you to be able to do absolutely everything, but I suppose there was something similar to this in Skyrim, where you could only join either the Imperial Legion or the Stormcloaks, so you did kinda need to make a choice between the factions in that game too. So yeah, I could definitely see that being actually in the game, where you can't join every faction. Dragons, again, same as before, they weren't really mopped up in Skyrim, so there's bound to be at least 1 or 2 still cutting about. The leak's pretty straightforward so far, but now we get to the line where things start to get pretty weird. This line is, big bad pantheon of void gods led by Nocturnal in cahoots with the Emperor. Now please take what I say with a grain of salt because I'm not a lore expert, but I'm not really sure what they mean by void gods. I know the Aedra and the Daedra. Do they mean the original gods who created the Aedra and the Daedra? Because there were only two of those gods and they were diametrically opposed if I remember correctly. So I don't understand why they'd work together. Nocturnal and the Emperor, why would Nocturnal be leading the gods that created her? That's just a bit weird. Wouldn't it make sense that those void gods would be infinitely more powerful than Nocturnal, so they would be leading her rather than her leading them? It doesn't make much sense to me unless the Bethesda are going to do some retconning of previously established lore. Also, in Oblivion and then Skyrim, the Emperor gets killed in the game either by an assassin or by the player as an assassin. Killing the Emperor is becoming a bit of a tired trope at this point, and if the Emperor is part of the big bad, I suppose it is bound to happen that the Emperor is going to get killed in this scenario of the game. And in previous Elder Scrolls games, the player character has kind of been aligned with the establishment or the government in some way. Maybe in Skyrim, if you allied with the Stormcloaks, you could argue that the player was against the Empire, but in every other game that I've played all the way back to Morrowind, you're mostly helping the powers that be. In this game, or this proposed version of the Elder Scrolls 6, it seems that the player would be going against the Emperor and therefore going against the establishment, and that kind of makes the player becoming some kind of outlaw. I don't think that Bethesda would really go for that, since it kind of breaks the fantasy of live another life in another world if you're forced to be the bad guy, or at least perceived as the bad guy. Not everyone who is perceived as the bad guy actually is the bad guy, I know this, but it's kind of a grey area. I don't know if Bethesda would want to tread that sort of thing. The next point of this leak, gods siphoning magicka. Magic is spelt wrong in this leak. From ancient mage crypts containing sources of original magic to manifest themselves into existence. The source of original magicka, I doubt that, because the source of magicka is Aetherius, which is basically the Aedra's plane of Oblivion, or their own plane of whatever the opposite of Oblivion is. I'm going to ultimately have to give this leak a 6 out of 10. Some parts might be likely, the 2028, the dragons returning, some of the guild stuff maybe, but the story sounds quite out there. Unless the user is telling things strangely or being backwards about it and trying not to get caught by Bethesda, I don't know why. Maybe Bethesda would need to do a fair bit of retconning of lore to make this actual proposed story or leaked story work. It definitely sounds cool, but I just can't really see it happening. And to play into the 6 out of 10, it's also on 4chan, which is pretty insane. I've been on 4chan many times and it's just a cesspool of absolute nutcases, and not everyone on there is a nutcase, but certainly nutcases are on there. But to be fair, Bethesda has retconned lore in the past, like with the Warp of the West, and since most players don't really know about the Void Gods, maybe this would be an easy retcon for them to do. So 6 out of 10, I'm willing to be wrong. Moving swiftly on to the third leak. The next leak comes from the Gaming Bible, which is basically the gaming part of the Lad Bible, which instantly halves its credibility, since these motherfuckers will literally write articles about anything with outrageous, misleading titles and all sorts of disinformation, misinformation, whatever you want to call it. When I clicked the link, the headline said the Elder Scrolls 6 leak, but then the article was clearly talking about the Oblivion remaster, so they're conflating the Elder Scrolls 6 with the Elder Scrolls 4 remaster for some reason, which kind of just proves my point that these guys will title their articles incredibly misleadingly, and then when they're sharing it on Facebook, people will click on it because they think it's about Elder Scrolls 6 when it's not. I'm going to rank this one 10 out of 10, very unlikely. You'd be insane if you even listen to anything that these guys are telling you. And the Gaming Bible may, because I said that they're going to half the credibility, it's 20 out of 10. Don't read this absolute shambles of a bloody news outlet. It's just a vehicle to show you all the adverts that they've got, and the page is literally filled with adverts, top to toe. The next leak is just a screenshot of the Elder Scrolls 6 title card. The card claims that the game's going to take place in Valenwood, so it's a pretty simple leak. Valenwood is supposed to be quite green, it's in the name Valenwood, but if you look at the only official source that we have, that 38-second trailer from about 7 years ago, there's actually not many trees and it looks quite arid. It doesn't really make sense for this one to be true, but then again, you never know, so I'm going to rate this one 9 out of 10. So now we make it to the final leak of the video, which is a video in itself. In this leak, it looks like someone is playing the game, it's recorded on a phone, and in the video it shows someone in an interior exiting that interior, perhaps it's a cave or something, and then they go outside to some sort of vista, a nice view, and you can see just rugged landscape as far as the eye can see. The video is not long, it's just a couple seconds long, but let's kind of break it down and actually look at some of the details to see if we can identify whether it's likely real or not. To start, at the top of the screen it says pre-release build not for public viewing. This is pretty evident that it's a pre-release build and not for public viewing when you're actually testing this stuff. In the pre-release software that I've worked on, it's never really said not for public viewing because that was kind of implied. Usually you sign some sort of contract like an NDA, and they make it pretty fucking clear that if you show this to the public, we're going to sue you, we're going to fire you, and you're never going to work in the industry again. Usually that sort of information is displayed in one of the bottom corners or top corners of the screen rather than slap bang at the top in the middle, since you don't want the text there distracting or obscuring things. So I find it pretty weird that it's placed so prominently at the top. It's almost as if the person who created this video wanted the people to see that, because from the view that we're actually looking at, if it was in one of the corners like it is in the software that I've used and tested, you wouldn't be able to see it. At the bottom of the screen during the loading screen it says, "Third time this month somebody has eaten my lunch, please stop, it's getting annoying." I think this kind of takes away from the credibility of the actual video itself, because in a real work scenario it is like an ultra sterilized environment where saying something like this could cause conflict, so it's something that HR would probably crack down upon. At least HR in my work would definitely be cracking down upon. There'd be meetings, you would be in meetings in person for hours and stuff like that if anyone did anything like this. So I think maybe either Bethesda is a better working space than I currently work in, if this is real, or this is probably just faked and it's like some sort of joke because the person couldn't think of what to write. I'm not saying it's not real because of that fact, I'm just saying it takes away from the credibility rather than adds to it. Honestly, the footage could be real, but it could also be faked quite easily, but it does have a kind of Hammerfell appearance, which is where I suspect the game will take place. I'm not really sure about this thing. There are things that feel suspicious, like the text at the top of the screen being displayed so prominently. I'm going to go ahead and stick in the middle of the road and give this one a 5 out of 10. So that's it for this video, guys. If you like the content, please comment, like and subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. Do you think any of these leaks are real, or do you think I've got any of my estimates wrong? Maybe I was too harsh on the Gaming Bible. Maybe you write for the Gaming Bible and would like to write an article about this video.